What's up everybody, Coach Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Overwatch video where we're going to be breaking down 7 unique tips that are guaranteed to help you climb in your ranked game. So do yourself a favor, smash that like and subscribe button and watch it to the end so you can be well on your way to GM. And of course, the GameLeap website is your one-stop shop to truly climb with in-depth Grandmaster VOD reviews, tips and tricks, mechanical positioning and game sense guides, everything you really need to climb with ease. So do yourself a favor and go check it out in the links down below. But without further ado, let's jump into the video. Now we're going to the first tip that I have for you, and this one is actually going to get you a ton of value, and it's be crazy aggressive until the enemy actually respect you. Now what I mean by this is your default setting should start off right away being crazy aggressive no matter what role you're playing, whether that means Ana instead of trying to just heal up your front line or heal up your DPS or whatever the case may be. You start off being really aggressive with your abilities, or as a DPS, whether it's a Doomfist or a Tracer, you go in hard trying to get that value or get that kill, whereas a tank, you try to take space incredibly aggressively. You see, I have VOD reviewed many players with really good mechanical skill, but they simply don't utilize them correctly. You need to be pushing W and force enemies to respect you, because then you put the burden on the enemy. You force them into a situation where they have to punish you, and if they could consistently punish all the people that were very aggressive or basically taking all the space or trying to make these plays, then they most likely would not be in the rank that they are currently at. But because players are playing in this really passive mindset, they stagnate over and over and over again. And what I would suggest for you is default to full aggression. Go as aggressive as possible. All in, try to make an aggressive play. And if it doesn't work, if they punish you or anything like that, you have time to reel it back. You're not going to lose the game right off the bat starting aggressive and then they just shut you down and you lose. You can always adjust based on how good the enemies are at punishing you. But I promise you, going in incredibly aggressively is just going to win you so many team fights just like that. Now the next tip I got for you is something that is really for you players that are very flexible, because a lot of people that watch the GameLeap channel, I know this for a fact, are players that like to play everything. You're an incredibly flexible player and you play many different heroes in your role. Now flexibility can be a strength in some regards. We teach specialization on this channel because we think that if you focus on a small number of heroes, you can maximize your strengths on them. But if you do have a really big hero pool, then you gotta be counter picking the enemy to really rely on that strength or use that strength. Specifically, heroes that are very good at countering enemy strategies or enemy heroes. Characters like Reaper, Sombra, Wrecking Ball, Pharah. I mean, the list goes on and on. Just a character that basically fundamentally counters what the enemy is doing. And the thing is, if the enemy only know like 2 characters, but you can play all the counters to those characters, if you just swap to those characters again and again, they're playing no hit scan, and then you swap to something like Pharah, and then all of a sudden they switch to a McCree, and you swap to something that outranges them like Widow. You just do this down the line. They switch to Monkey, and you switch to Reaper. They switch to Wrecking Ball, and you switch to Sombra. Whatever you do over and over again, you basically squeeze them out and make them very ineffective at whatever they're playing again and again and again. And in doing this, you really utilize your very big hero pool, and if the enemy can't match you on that axis, you're going to always be playing a character that has the leg up in the matchup. So even if they are better than you at the character they're playing, you will be playing a character that has an inherent advantage, and as long as you play that well or you play on that axis, that ability based axis where you have that advantage, you're going to be able to shut them down over and over again and get a lot of value that way. Now the third thing, this is the third big tip that's guaranteed to help you climb, and this happens a lot in your games, and I'm sure that it had maybe happened yesterday, it might have happened the day before, and you've gone up against a Smurf, right? And the thing that you need to understand about Smurfs is if you want any choice or chance to win against a Smurf, then it is a team effort. Think of them like a raid boss. You should stop flaming your teammates if they're losing a matchup against a Smurf Widow or a Smurf whatever. You cannot expect them to take that 1v1 and win it. They're up against a Smurf. 2v1, 3v1, that is a way that you can create a Smurf loss. So you need to first identify what the Smurf is, who the Smurf is, where they are. Talk to your teammates, ask them, are you losing this matchup? What's the problem? Don't start blaming them right off the bat. You need to understand who the Smurf is, identify that player, and then come up with a game plan to shut them down. Go in with your DPS, go in with your tank, whatever you need to do whatever you can to stop what that smurf is directly doing. Of course, you could counter pick like we said before, or even adjust more defensively and just keep that smurf in check. Whatever you got to do, because I promise you, smurfs, no matter how good they are, they lose games. They lose games all over the place, especially if they have a team that is putting time and effort into focusing them down. Now, moving on to the fourth unique strategy that it can really help you climb if you incorporate it correctly, and that's spawn camping. Now, this one is really actually so strong as long as you understand your individual matchups. The thing that you get with spawn camping is you get the element of surprise, you get a strong flank positioning, you frustrate the enemy, and you can get a ton of value once you get the spawn camp kill and you go back to the team fight. So the first thing that you need to understand is what is your matchup against the person that you're going up against. Now, you could even have an unfavored matchup because you do have that element of surprise. If you're someone like Tracer and maybe the enemy is like a Hanzo, and traditionally that's not a great matchup for you, but if you could do 100 damage to them by surprise because they don't expect to be spawn camped, all of a sudden you can just exhaust all your blinks and just do a little bit of damage, a little bit of damage, a little bit of damage, and finish them off, and then all of a sudden you win that matchup, even though it is hard for you if he gets to set up appropriately. So that is something that you need to think about. What is that matchup like? You also need to be keeping track of who else could have died or who else did die, and you got to realize that it's a lot harder to spawn camp if multiple people are coming at a spawn. Of course, this is really obvious. You can let enemies know that you're coming. That's a really important one. And a lot of times people spawn camp too early. Someone will take a step out of spawn and they will start to try to do damage to them already. You want them to actually be in the most positionally weak area. So if they're routing back to their team, they will cross through open space where they have no space to jiggle behind. That is when you want to engage them so they can't run away. They're forced to take the duel with you. And if you're already getting that element of surprise and that damage, they really can't disengage very easily. And then this is the most important part. After you get that kill from spawn camping, you need to be going instantly back to the team fight. That enemy, they could come out of spawn as something completely different. You can't assume that the spawn camping strategy will work the second time. On top of that, they're going to be prepared for you. So after you get that kill, immediately you get your cooldowns back, or you go grab a mega or whatever, and then you go instantly back into the team fight. Go in with your team and take that 6v5 and destroy the enemy team with that numbers advantage, and you're taking a flank on them before that enemy that you spawn camp could even come back to the fight. Now, moving on to tip number 5, and this is actually a really powerful one for winning a lot of matchups and a lot of duels, is you start and engage near a mega or an HP. The thing you need to understand is that your position can be stronger or weaker if you are nearby an HP or some heal. Of course, if you're near your healer or you're in within LOS of that healer, that's automatically stronger positioning, but a mega can do the same thing, and you can start a duel when you're near a mega or you're closer to a mega. So for example, let's take the map like Eichenwald on stairs, where there's that mega underneath stairs on the second point. If you're at the top of stairs and you take a duel with somebody and you start to retreat, if you grab that mega first and they chase you down there, you're gonna have a much bigger advantage, because you could have did a little bit of damage to them, they could have done some damage to you, but now you're full health, you got that sustain back, and it actually gives you an increase in strength and power level in that duel. And it's really important to keep track of these, because you really don't want to be engaging an enemy near a mega if they're near it, or even a health pack, because that gives them some sort of sustain and some sort of advantage. It realistically is a 1v1, but it doesn't feel like a 1v1 because that gives you a little bit of a bump. So definitely keep that in mind. And of course, if you are near one, you can be a little bit more aggressive with how you take duels, as long as you are goalying or putting yourself in between the mega so the enemy can't snatch it from you, especially if it's a character like a Genji or a Tracer that can easily triple blink in and steal that from you. You got to be really careful of that, and keep in mind that that's something that they probably are going to want to do. Now, move on to tip number 6, and this is a really interesting one that you learn playing a lot of other games like Valorant or CSGO or whatever, but it really applies to Overwatch 2, and it's trigger discipline. Now, what I mean by this is giving away your position before the perfect moment. So let's say you're an Honor, right, and you want to go for something really aggressive, and you're hiding in a cubby. Now, one enemy walks by, and your first instinct is to nade them and sleep them, right? But there's multiple enemies coming right behind them, and if you don't give away your position, no one's gonna check there because that first person didn't check there. So you wait and you wait and you wait, and multiple people trickle in. They're right by you, but you're in a really powerful position. You wait for that opportunity to all of a sudden, as your teammates engage the front line, you nade 3 people, you sleep a 4th person, your team rushes in, and you win. That is where you have that trigger discipline. It's also true with something like Widowmaker, for example. You could be Widowmaker on a flank or in an off angle, and you don't even take that first shot until your teammates are ready to engage. You wait for the enemy team to route through, and you go for that furthest back person. Maybe you see multiple people that maybe you could get a kill on, but there is a margin for error. They're moving around. You wait for the Ana to just stop moving and scope in and try to heal one of her tanks, because that's what Anas always do. They wait, they scope in, they don't move, and it's a really easy shot, and that's what you wait for. You have that trigger discipline. You look for an opportunity to get guaranteed value, and maybe you go from one person to the next, you get 2 kills as your team was pushing in, and you win the fight. But you could do this with any single character. You're just waiting for the perfect opportunity. You're being patient. There's a kill in front of you, or there's an opportunity in front of you, but you wait for the better one, and this is all part of trigger discipline is what I'm going to call it, but it could be ability discipline as well. Now, the last tip on the video is actually one of my favorite tips to do with a duo partner. It is incredibly broken, and it's trick enemies into pushing into a numbers disadvantage, or you're basically setting a trap. So what I mean by this is you could be playing something like an Ana, right? And you peek through a little door and you throw a nade at an enemy, you nade one enemy and you start running away, right? What is that enemy gonna do to you? They're gonna get healed, 2 people are gonna chase you. But you have your ally literally playing in the door as a roadhog, just standing there. He's just waiting. Now, he's not peeking yet, but the second that person chases after you, he's there to kill you. And what you did is you put some value in, and you set yourself up in a scenario where the enemies are very incentivized to chase you, but you have someone to directly punish. And you can even have multiple people to directly punish. The enemies think that they're going to get a free kill, but no, surprise, surprise, your teammate or multiple teammates are waiting there, setting that trap for them. You get that free pick, then you go into the team fight as an entire team, and you got that numbers advantage, which we've talked about many times on this channel. You get that numbers advantage, and statistically, you're very likely to win the team fight. So this is just one really fun trick to incorporate that I think is really powerful among all 7 of these tips and tricks that are going to get you more value in your game. So definitely test them out. And if you have any obscure tips and tricks, definitely let us know in the comments down below so the rest of the community can learn from your valuable insight. But speaking of insight, the GameLeap website is packed full of insight about what it takes to be a Grandmaster. We got in-depth Grandmaster VOD reviews, tips and tricks, advanced concepts, and character guides, courses that bring you top to bottom on how to climb on those characters. So do yourself a favor and go check it out in the links down below. Thanks so much for coming by and being part of the GameLeap community. I'm Coach Mills, and until next time.